Imagine this. You're sitting across from a friend who's venting about their toxic relationship. Their partner belittles them, ignores their needs, and takes advantage of their kindness. You can see the pain in their eyes, the exhaustion in their posture. Every fiber of your being wants to scream, "Leave now!" But instead, you smile softly and say, "Maybe they didn't mean it that way." Because you don't want to hurt their feelings, because you don't want to seem harsh, because above all, you want to be nice. Here's the unsettling truth. Your niceness just became an accomplice to their suffering. The paradox of the good person. This is the silent epidemic of modern morality. We've been taught that kindness means never causing discomfort to ourselves or others. That being a good person requires endless patience, infinite understanding, and the suppression of anything that might rock the boat. But consider the contradiction. You swallow your truth to spare others' feelings, but resentment grows like a tumor in your chest. You say yes when you mean no, and wonder why people treat your boundaries as optional. You tolerate cruelty under the guise of compassion, while the world grows darker by your silence. This isn't kindness. It's moral cowardice disguised as virtue. Lost in the machine. Ask yourself, when was the last time you bit your tongue to keep the peace? What truths have you buried because they might make someone uncomfortable? How much of your niceness is actually fear, of conflict, of rejection, of being seen as difficult? Carl Jung called this the shadow, the parts of ourselves we disown because they don't fit our ideal self-image. For the chronically nice, the shadow isn't anger or selfishness. It's the terrifying capacity to say no. And here's what no one tells you. The more you suppress your boundaries, the more they erupt in passive aggression, health issues, and secret bitterness. The cultural conspiracy. We've built a world that rewards false niceness. Social media algorithms favor pleasant lies over uncomfortable truths. Workplaces promote agreeable sycophants over honest thinkers. Romantic partners often prefer doormats over equals. Even our language betrays us. We call women bossy for leading and men assholes for setting boundaries. The message is clear. Stay sweet, stay small, stay silent. The fork in the road. This is where most self-help advice fails. They tell you to be more assertive, as if it's a skill to learn. But the problem isn't technique, it's identity. You don't struggle to set boundaries because you don't know how. You struggle because part of you believes, if I'm not endlessly accommodating, I'm unlovable. That's the real issue hiding behind your smile, not a lack of confidence, a crisis of worthiness. So the question isn't, how can I be nicer, but rather, what would it cost me to stop betraying myself in the name of kindness? The tyranny of the good person mask. Beneath every compulsive act of niceness lies a silent scream, the terror of being truly seen. We wear the good person persona like armor, not realizing it's the very thing keeping us from authentic connection. Friedrich Nietzsche saw through this centuries ago. The surest way to corrupt a youth is to instruct him to hold in higher esteem those who think alike than those who think differently. This is the first psychological trap. We confuse agreement for virtue. The childhood wound. For most chronic people-pleasers, the pattern began early. The parent who only praised you when you were quiet and compliant, the teacher who rewarded obedience over curiosity, the playground politics where nice meant safe and difficult, meant ostracized your nervous system, learned a dangerous equation. Being fully myself, danger, performing goodness, survival. The existential dilemma. Jean-Paul Sartre identified the core tension. Hell is other people. But he didn't mean others are inherently toxic. He meant we torture ourselves, trying to control their perceptions of us. Every time you laugh at an offensive joke to avoid awkwardness, swallow criticism to prevent conflict. Say I'm fine when you're drowning, you're not being kind. You're negotiating for safety at the cost of your soul. The neurological betrayal brain scans reveal the hidden cost. Amygdala hijacking. When you suppress your truth, your threat detection system stays perpetually activated, flooding your body with stress hormones. Mirror neuron warfare. Your brain automatically mimics others' emotions. Constant emotional labor, faking smiles, suppressing anger, creates neural exhaustion. Dopamine paradox. You get temporary relief when people approve of your niceness, reinforcing the addiction to approval-seeking. The cultural gaslighting society pathologizes healthy selfishness while rewarding pathological altruism. The martyr complex, celebrating those who sacrifice themselves until they collapse, then calling them heroes instead of victims. Spiritual bypassing, using faux enlightened platitudes, just be loving, to avoid necessary conflict, the likability trap. Especially for women and minorities, where survival often depends on performing non-threatening pleasantness, the core realization, chronic niceness isn't tea-kindness. It is a sophisticated defense mechanism against the terrifying freedom of being fully human. The question isn't, why am I like this, but rather, what ancient survival strategy am I still obeying that no longer serves me? The slow poison of self-betrayal. You don't notice the erosion at first. A suppressed opinion here, a swallowed protest there, small surrenders that seem harmless in isolation. But like carbon monoxide, the cumulative effect is deadly. Your body keeps score. Chronic people-pleasers develop unexplained chronic pain, the physical manifestation of unexpressed boundaries. Autoimmune disorders, the immune system attacking the self just as the psyche does. Mysterious fatigue, the exhaustion of maintaining a false persona. The mind-body connection isn't metaphorical. When you systematically deny your truth, your biology rebels. The relationship paradox. Here's the cruel irony. The more you prioritize others' comfort, the shallower your connections become. Partners never meet the real you, just your carefully managed performance. Friends subconsciously disrespect your time because you've trained them to. Colleagues take credit for your ideas, recognizing you won't protest. Worst of all, you attract emotional vampires, people who instinctively sense your inability to say no. The creativity massacre. Original thought requires the courage to disagree, be misunderstood, risk disapproval. When you compulsively seek harmony, you murder your most innovative ideas in their cradle. History's greatest breakthroughs came from those willing to be difficult. Galileo, Van Gogh, Turing. Your niceness isn't virtuous. It's complicit in your own mental stagnation. The generational curse children learn what they live. Your daughter watches you tolerate disrespect and learns this is how women should be treated. Your son sees you swallow anger and learns emotions are dangerous. Your employees witness your avoidance of tough decisions and inherit your leadership cowardice. The cost compounds exponentially. Your silence today becomes someone else's prison tomorrow. The spiritual bankruptcy. All major wisdom traditions agree. True kindness requires fierce truth. Buddhist monks practice loving speech and radical honesty. Jesus drove money changers from the temple. The Tao Te Ching warns, kindness without truth is not kindness at all. Your niceness isn't spiritual advancement, it's spiritual bypassing. A cheap imitation of enlightenment that avoids the messy work of actual growth. The turning point. But within these consequences lies an unexpected gift. Your resentment is a compass. That simmering anger when people take advantage, that's not a flaw. It's your psyche's last-ditch effort to save you. Every time you feel used, your soul is screaming. Notice where you're betraying yourself. The question becomes, will you keep numbing these signals with more niceness? Or will you finally listen to what they're trying to tell you? The myth of the good person. The first revolutionary act is this: stop trying to be good, not because you should be cruel, but because goodness, as you've defined it, is a cage. The morally mature person isn't endlessly agreeable. They're appropriately assertive, strategically confrontational, and wisely selfish. Nietzsche saw this clearly. The individual has always had to struggle to keep from being overwhelmed by the tribe. If you try it, you will be lonely often and sometimes frightened, but no price is too high to pay for the privilege of owning yourself. Strategy 1. The 5% rule. You don't need to transform overnight. Start with micro-rebellions. At dinner, when asked, "Where should we eat?" don't default to "I don't mind." Express an actual preference in conversation. Allow 5 seconds of uncomfortable silence rather than rushing to fill it. At work, say, "Let me think about that," instead of an automatic "yes." These tiny acts rewire your nervous system's fear response. Strategy 2. Anger as ally. Your suppressed rage isn't dangerous, it's data. Try this. Keep an injustice log for 1 week. Note every time you feel resentment, someone cutting in line, a colleague interrupting you. Then ask, where else in my life does this pattern appear? You'll discover your anger has been trying to show you your boundaries all along. Strategy 3. The no laboratory practice refusal in low-stakes environments. Return an unnecessary upsell with "no thank you." When a telemarketer calls, say "not interested" and hang up at a store. Ask to try something on even if you don't plan to buy it. This builds your no muscles without existential stakes. Strategy 4. The cost-benefit flip. When tempted to people-please, ask, what's the cost of saying yes, and who actually pays it? That extra work project your family pays with your absence, that toxic friend's drama, your mental health pays the price, that fake smile, your authenticity is the casualty. Suddenly, selfishness becomes moral responsibility. Strategy 5. The 3-question filter. Before agreeing to anything, ask, is this aligned with my core values? Am I acting from fear or integrity? Will future me present me for this choice? This creates space between stimulus and response. Frankl's freedom to choose. The deeper shift. These tactics work because they address the root issue. You've been outsourcing your self-worth to others' opinions. True rebellion isn't about becoming rude. It is about transferring your moral compass from external approval to internal integrity. As Jung warned, the most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely, because once you do, no one can threaten you with disapproval ever again. The lie we've been sold all along. We've misunderstood kindness. We thought it meant never disappointing anyone, absorbing others' pain, keeping the peace at all costs. But true kindness is far more radical and far more demanding. The paradox of boundaries. Here's the counterintuitive truth. The most loving act is often to disappoint someone now rather than resent them later. When you say no to a favor you'll resent, refuse to enable destructive behavior, decline to participate in your own mistreatment, you're not being unkind. You're giving the gift of clarity about who you are and what you'll tolerate. The mirror principle. Your relationships mirror your self-respect. The more you tolerate disrespect, the more others will disrespect you. The more you abandon yourself, the more others will abandon you too. The more you pretend to be nice, the more you attract people who prefer your facade. As psychologist Alice Miller observed, the truth about our childhood is stored up in our body, and although we can repress it, we can never alter it. Our intellect can be deceived, our feelings manipulated, our perceptions confused, and our body tricked with medication, but someday the body will present its bill. The spiritual reckoning. All authentic spiritual traditions agree. Buddhism's right speech requires truth before harmony. Christianity's turn the other cheek was never about tolerating abuse. Stoicism teaches that true goodness requires courage. Your niceness was never virtue, it was fear dressed in moral clothing. The final realization: stand before the mirror tonight and ask, Who would I be if I stopped performing goodness and started embodying integrity? Not the sanitized, socially approved version of you, not the people-pleasing automaton, but the messy, magnificent, inconvenient human who says no when no is true, takes space when space is needed, demands respect because they finally respect themselves. This is the great paradox. The kindest thing you can do for the world is to stop sacrificing yourself to it, because only when you're fully alive can you truly serve others. Only when you honor your boundaries can you offer authentic connection. Only when you stop being nice can you become good. The rebellion ends here, not with a bang, but with a quiet exhale. The mask drops. The real work begins. Imagine this. You are standing at the edge of a cliff, not to jump, but to witness something far more unsettling. Below you stretches a vast, jagged landscape, a terrain of emotional wounds, failures and heartbreaks you've spent a lifetime avoiding. The air is thick with the unspoken truth that every meaningful path forward cuts straight through it. And here's the paradox. You've been taught that pain is the enemy, that happiness means sidestepping sorrow, that growth is a linear ascent toward light, away from the dark. But what if the opposite is true? What if the very wounds you've been running from are the exact fissures through which your deepest strength emerges? Consider the caterpillar. To become a butterfly, it doesn't simply grow wings. It dissolves into a primordial soup within its chrysalis, its very structure breaking down before reassembling into something new. No part of that transformation is painless. No part is comfortable. And yet, without that disintegration, flight would be impossible. Why then do we humans insist on believing we can evolve without enduring the same? Think of the last time life shattered you, the loss that left you gasping, the betrayal that hollowed out your chest, the failure that made you question your worth. In that moment, you faced a choice, to numb the ache or to let it carve into you. Most choose the former. We drink, we scroll, we bury ourselves in work, we pretend the wound isn't there. But beneath that avoidance lurks a terrifying question. What if the pain wasn't the obstacle, but the path? History's most profound thinkers, Nietzsche with his declaration that what does not kill me makes me stronger, Jung with his shadow work, Frankl surviving the Holocaust by finding meaning in suffering, all point to the same unsettling truth. Emotional pain is not a detour on the road to growth. It is the road. Yet we live in a world obsessed with bypassing it. Therapy is often sought to fix sadness, not to sit with it. Productivity gurus preach hacks to avoid discomfort, not to metabolize it. We medicate grief, pathologize loneliness, and shame anger, as if these emotions are errors in the code of being human, rather than essential threads in the tapestry of a life fully lived. But here's what happens when we refuse to feel. The pain doesn't disappear, it metastasizes. It emerges as chronic anxiety, as unexplained rage, as a void no achievement can fill. It whispers to us in the quiet hours, you are running, but you cannot hide. So let me ask you, what if the heartbreak you re-avoiding is the very thing that will teach you how to love? What if the failure you're ashamed of is the foundation of your future resilience? What if the grief you're suppressing is the key to unlocking your deepest compassion? This is not a call to seek suffering. It is a call to stop fearing it, to recognize that emotional pain is not the antithesis of growth. It is the alchemical fire that transforms you. And if that's true, then everything you've been taught about happiness, success, and self-improvement might be backwards. Which means the real question isn't, how do I avoid pain? It's, how do I let it change me? You wake up one morning and realize something is wrong, not with the world, but with the way you've been taught to move through it. You've been handed a script: avoid pain, seek pleasure, optimize happiness, and yet the more diligently you follow it, the emptier you feel. Why? Because beneath the surface of this modern dogma lies a fundamental misunderstanding of human nature. We've been conditioned to believe that suffering is a malfunction, a glitch in the system that must be corrected. But psychology, philosophy, and even neuroscience reveal a far darker, far more liberating truth. Pain is not the enemy. Denial is. The illusion of the pain-free life. From birth, we absorb a silent narrative that a good life is one free from suffering. Advertising sells us escape. Social media showcases highlight reels devoid of struggle. Even well-meaning advice, just stay positive, implies that sadness is a failure of willpower. But this is a lie. Ancient Stoics like Marcus Aurelius understood that suffering is woven into existence. Buddhism's first noble truth declares life inherently unsatisfactory. Carl Jung warned that refusing to confront pain only deepens its grip, burying it in the unconscious, where it morphs into self-sabotage, projection, and neurosis. And yet, modern culture insists on a different story, one where discomfort is optional, where emotional scars are flaws to be erased rather than lessons etched into the soul. The psychology of avoidance and its consequences. Here's what happens when we refuse to face emotional pain. It goes underground. Freud called it repression. Jung called it the shadow. When we refuse to acknowledge our wounds, they don't vanish, they fester. A heartbreak denied becomes cynicism. A childhood trauma buried resurfaces as inexplicable rage. The pain we ignore doesn't leave. It just learns to whisper in ways we no longer recognize. We lose the capacity for depth. Nietzsche wrote, "To live is to suffer. To survive is to find some meaning in the suffering." When we numb our sorrows, we also numb our joy. The same neural pathways that process grief also allow for transcendent love. The same vulnerability that makes us susceptible to hurt is the only gateway to true connection. We become addicted to distraction. The modern world is a cathedral of avoidance, endless scrolling, binge-watching, compulsive productivity, all designed to keep us one step ahead of our own emotions. But as Alan Watts observed, the only way to make sense out of change is to plunge into it, move with it, and join the dance. The existential dilemma, why we fear pain. At its core, our resistance to emotional suffering stems from a primal terror, the fear of annihilation. The ego's resistance pain shatters the illusion of control. It forces us to confront our fragility, our mortality, the uncomfortable truth that we are not the architects of our fate, but participants in something far larger. The ego, which craves stability, will do anything to avoid this reckoning. The myth of permanent safety. We cling to the fantasy that if we just make the right choices, we can engineer a life without loss. But as Schopenhauer argued, suffering is not an aberration, it is the default state of desire. To want is to suffer. To love is to risk devastation. To strive is to court failure. The cultural taboo against darkness. We've pathologized melancholy, treating it as a disorder rather than a necessary season of the soul. Yet, as Rumi wrote, the wound is the place where the light enters you. What if depression, anxiety, and heartbreak are not enemies, but guides? The fork in the road. This is where the hidden problem reveals itself. We've been taught that growth is about addition, more knowledge, more success, more happiness. But real transformation is often about subtraction, shedding illusions, facing truths, allowing old versions of ourselves to die so new ones can emerge. And that requires pain. Not the kind of pain that destroys, but the kind that initiates, like the burning of a phoenix before it rises, like the cracking of a seed before it sprouts. So the question is no longer, how do I avoid suffering? It's, what is this pain trying to teach me? And the answer to that question will lead us into even deeper waters. You're walking through life with an invisible weight, one you've carried so long you've forgotten it's there. It shapes how you love, how you work, how you dream. It whispers in your decisions, your relationships, your quietest moments of doubt. This weight is the unprocessed pain you've been running from, and it's silently shaping your reality in ways you don't even realize. The high cost of emotional avoidance. When we refuse to face our suffering, it doesn't vanish, it goes rogue. Like a virus mutating beneath the surface, it infiltrates every aspect of our being. The paradox of numbness. Research shows that emotional suppression doesn't just deaden pain, it deadens everything. Studies on alexithymia, the inability to feel emotions, reveal that people who shut down grief also struggle to feel joy. The nervous system isn't selective. When you build walls to keep out sorrow, you also imprison laughter. The illusion of control. Modern psychology confirms what ancient philosophies knew. The more we try to control our emotions, the more they control us. Harvard researcher Susan David found that rigid positivity, I must stay happy, leads to greater emotional volatility. Meanwhile, those who accept difficult emotions recover faster. The repetition compulsion. Freud noticed a haunting pattern. Unhealed pain recreates itself. The abandoned child chases distant partners. The humiliated employee sabotages success. Like a ghost, unresolved suffering drags us back to familiar wounds, demanding we finally face what we've buried. The neurological truth. Pain reshapes the brain, but not how you think. Neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to rewire itself, reveals something extraordinary. Pain creates privation. Trauma leaves physical scars in neural pathways. Yes. But psychologist Donald Hebb's famous axiom explains why neurons that fire together wire together. Each time we avoid pain, we reinforce the fear of feeling it. But suffering can also rewire wisdom. Studies on post-traumatic growth show that facing emotional pain, not avoiding it, strengthens the prefrontal cortex, enhancing emotional regulation. Like a muscle forced to lift heavier weights, the mind grows stronger through resistance. The cultural hypnosis, how society profits from your avoidance. We live in an economy built on escape. The wellness industrial complex sells us meditation apps to quiet anxiety rather than understand its message. The productivity cult glorifies burnout as a virtue, pathologizing rest as laziness. The digital opiate of social media offers endless distraction from the self. This isn't accidental. A population afraid of its own shadows is easier to control. As Huxley warned in Brave New World, the most effective dystopia isn't one of punishment, but of pleasure, of comfort, of endless distraction from anything real. The body keeps the score. Bessel van der Kolk's groundbreaking work proves what poets have always known. The body remembers what the mind forgets. Chronic pain with no medical cause, often stored trauma, unexplained fatigue, a nervous system exhausted from repression, anxiety attacks, the psyche's last-ditch effort to be heard. Your cells are archives of everything you've refused to feel. The fork in the road. This is the silent tragedy of emotional avoidance. We think we're choosing safety, but we're choosing stagnation. We believe we're outrunning pain, but we're outrunning ourselves. Every great spiritual tradition speaks of the dark night of the soul, not as punishment, but as passage. The desert the Israelites wandered, the Buddha's night under the Bodhi tree, Christ's agony in Gethsemane. These weren't detours, they were the only way forward. So the question isn't, why is this happening to me? It's, what is this pain preparing me to become? And the answer to that question holds the key to breaking free. There comes a moment, if you're lucky, when the weight of your own avoidance becomes heavier than the fear of facing what you've buried. This is the moment of rebellion. Not against the world, but against everything inside you that still believes pain is the enemy. The counterintuitive truth, leaning into the wound. Modern psychology and ancient wisdom agree on one radical prescription. The way out is through, not around, not over, through. The alchemy of acceptance studies on mindfulness reveal a paradox. When patients with chronic pain stop resisting their discomfort, their suffering decreases. The same applies to emotional pain. This isn't passive resignation, it's active surrender. Like a judo master using an opponent's force, you disarm pain by no longer fighting it. Shadow work, Jung's path to wholeness. Carl Jung taught that integration, not elimination, is the goal. Your rage, your shame, your darkest impulses, they're not defects to destroy, but exiled parts of yourself waiting to be reclaimed. Try this. When a painful emotion arises, ask, what is this here to teach me? Not how do I make it leave? The Nietzschean transformation. Nietzsche's concept of amor fati, love of fate, proposes a revolutionary stance. Not merely bear what is necessary, but love it. This isn't masochism, it as the recognition that your deepest wounds contain the seeds of your greatest strengths. Practical alchemy, turning pain into power. 1. The ritual of sacred anger. Most spiritual traditions pathologize rage, but psychologist James Hollis suggests anger is often the soul's defense against annihilation. Try this. Write a letter to whoever, whatever caused you pain. Burn it. Don't send it. This isn't about them. It's about reclaiming your voice. 2. Grief as a practice, not an event. Modern society gives us 3 days of bereavement leave, but expects a lifetime of productivity. This is insanity. Create a grief ritual, light a candle, play a song that cracks you open. Let the tears come like a monsoon. This is how the heart purifies itself. 3. The art of productive suffering. Viktor Frankl survived Auschwitz by finding meaning in torment. His lesson: when we can't change a situation, we're challenged to change ourselves. Ask, what higher purpose could this pain serve? Maybe your anxiety makes you more empathetic. Maybe your failures taught you discernment. The warriors who walked this path before you, Frida Kahlo turned physical agony into surrealist masterpieces. Lincoln channeled lifelong depression into moral leadership. Nelson Mandela transformed 27 years of imprisonment into a force for reconciliation. They weren't superhuman. They simply understood what most never realize. Pain is the price of admission to a meaningful life. The fork in the road. This is where you choose. Will you continue running from your shadows, exhausting yourself in a futile attempt to outpace what's already inside you? Or will you turn and face them, not as enemies, but as the fiercest teachers you'll ever know? Because beyond this choice lies the most shocking revelation of all. Here is the secret at the heart of the labyrinth. You are not being punished by your pain. You are being sculpted by it. Every loss, every betrayal, every silent night of the soul. These are not interruptions of your path. They are the path, the crucible of transformation. Consider the metamorphosis of a diamond. Carbon atoms subjected to unbearable pressure. Darkness so complete it rearranges their very structure. An alchemy that transforms soft black graphite into unbreakable light. This is not a metaphor. This is physics, and it is also the story of your life. The existential revelation. All great wisdom traditions converge on one terrifying, liberating truth: Christian mysticism. The wound is where the light enters you. Buddhism. No mud, no lotus. Alchemy, as above, so below. The macrocosm of stars being born in stellar catastrophes mirrors the microcosm of human transformation. Modern psychology confirms what the ancients knew. Post-traumatic growth studies show that people who fully process suffering often develop greater emotional resilience, deeper spiritual connection, more authentic relationships, heightened appreciation for life. The Phoenix Principle mythology gives us the phoenix for a reason, not as fantasy but as map. The fire comes for everyone. You don't choose the flames choose you. A failed marriage, a terminal diagnosis, a dream that dies, the surrender. The phoenix doesn't resist burning. It lets the fire consume every feather. This is what you've been avoiding, the holy annihilation of who you thought you were. The rebirth. From ashes comes a creature capable of flight, not despite the fire, because of it, the quantum perspective. Modern physics reveals a startling parallel to emotional growth. Particle collisions. Subatomic particles must be smashed apart at nearly light speed to reveal their fundamental nature. Your breaking points, those moments when you sobbed, "I can't take this anymore," were your personal particle colliders, revealing who you truly are beneath the persona, your pain as sacred text. The Japanese art of kintsugi repairs broken pottery with gold lacquer, honoring the breaks as part of the object's history. You are that pottery. Your anxiety, a map of what matters most to you. Proof of your capacity to love failure. The foundation of future mastery, the final invitation. At the edge of all understanding stands this truth. The universe is not happening to you. It is happening for you. Every tear waters the seeds of wisdom. Anguish carves channels for compassion. Dark night makes you fluent in the language of dawn. You stand now at the threshold between who you were and who you must become. The bridge between them. The very pain you've been running from. The last question. Not, why did this happen? But, who will I choose to become because it did? The answer writes itself in every breath you take from this moment forward. Imagine this. You're lying on a bed of synthetic clouds, a world where algorithms anticipate your cravings before you feel them, where every interaction is frictionless, every discomfort medicated away. Your body is safe, your mind is numb. Then, one midnight, you startle awake with a primal scream stuck in your throat. You try to name what's wrong, but there's no language for it in this polished utopia. The horror isn't that something hurts, the horror is that nothing does. Nietzsche saw this coming 150 years ago. In the twilight of the 19th century, he penned his most chilling prophecy: the last men, the most contemptible creatures, have invented happiness. They blink, they no longer love or hate. We have invented happiness, say the last men, and they blink. Here's the uncomfortable truth they never taught you in school. Human beings are not designed for paradise. We thrive on resistance. Our bones need gravity. Our psyches need problems to solve. Our souls need something to push against. Yet everywhere, modernity whispers the opposite. Avoid struggle. Optimize pleasure. Curate comfort. But what if this is the grandest lie ever sold? Consider, depression rates are highest in wealthy nations. WHO data. The most privileged generations report unprecedented anxiety. Ancient Stoics warned luxury softens the mind, yet we chase it like salvation. This isn't coincidence, it's causality. So let me ask you, when was the last time you did something that terrified you? Not for money or fame, but simply to feel the electric aliveness of being uncomfortably human. The answer might reveal more about your spiritual vitality than any bank statement ever could. Because here's what Nietzsche knew that we've forgotten. Comfort doesn't preserve life, it mummifies it. And the path back to aliveness begins where your safety ends. The modern world has perfected the art of anesthesia. We've engineered the existence where discomfort is medicated before it can be felt. Boredom is outlawed by infinite scrolling. Uncertainty is algorithmically erased by predictive text. But beneath this sanitized surface, something primal is suffocating. Nietzsche's diagnosis: the last man syndrome. In Thus Spoke Zarathustra, Nietzsche warns of the last man, a creature who has tamed life into bland safety. No shepherd and one herd. Everybody wants the same. Everybody is the same. Whoever feels different goes voluntarily into the madhouse. This isn't prophecy, it's autopsy. Observe. The atrophy of ambition. Studies show lottery winners often become depressed. Without struggle, achievement loses meaning. The paradox of choice. Barry Schwartz's research proves too many options create paralysis, not freedom. Digital pacifiers. Dopamine hits from likes replace the hard-won joy of creating the biological betrayal. Our bodies are evolutionary relics screaming against comfort. The pain paradox. Pain receptors exist not to torture us, but to signal growth opportunities. Muscle tears rebuild stronger. Chronic pain studies show avoidance worsens suffering, exactly like emotional resistance stress. As nutrient hormesis research proves, low-dose stressors, fasting, cold exposure, extend lifespan. The immune system weakens in sterile environments. Children with pets get fewer allergies. The comfort-obesity link. Just as muscles atrophy without use, the will atrophies without challenge. MRI scans reveal the prefrontal cortex shrinks in risk-averse individuals. Philosophical roots. From Schopenhauer to Skinner. Schopenhauer's will to life. The fundamental human drive isn't happiness, it's striving remove obstacles, and the will turns inward in self-destruction. See Celebrity Meltdowns. Skinner's box of modernity. Our environment has become a behaviorist cage of predictable rewards. Variable rewards. Social media, dating apps, create addiction, not fulfillment. The Huxleyan warning. Unlike Orwell's boot-on-face dystopia, Huxley foresaw we'd be destroyed by what we love. Infinite distractions now prevent any confrontation with existential questions. The spiritual malnutrition. Comfort culture produces the untested man, Jordan Peterson's critique of unearned confidence. The uninitiated woman, lacking rites of passage beyond consumer milestones. The unlived life, Jung's warning about dying with potential still inside. Historical cases prove Nietzsche right. Rome collapsed when bread and circuses replaced civic virtue. The Dutch polder model of excessive consensus bred cultural stagnation. The fork in the road. Here's what they don't tell you about comfort. It doesn't feel like decay in the moment. It feels like winning. Until one day you wake up, unable to tolerate criticism, terrified of any conflict, secretly envying those who still have something to fight for. This is the hidden tax of perpetual ease. It doesn't just make you weak, it makes you forget you were ever strong. But there's a way back, through what Nietzsche called the discipline of suffering. The first sip of comfort tastes like honey. The 100th tastes like ashes. What begins as reasonable self-care metastasizes into something far darker, a life where disagreements are avoided rather than resolved. Relationships exist in transactional harmony. Art becomes content, philosophy becomes self-help, and passion becomes hobby. This is the slow death Nietzsche warned about, not with a bang, but with a yawn. The relationship paradox. Modern love suffers from terminal comfort. Conflict avoidance as emotional malpractice. Gottman Institute research shows couples who never argue have higher divorce rates. Like immune systems, relationships need periodic stresses to strengthen the dating apocalypse. Apps create the illusion of infinite options, making commitment feel like settling. Soft ghosting replaces clean breakups. We've lost the courage to endure awkwardness, friendship as mutual affirmation. Ancient cultures valued the truth-teller friend, Socrates' daemon. Modern friendships often degenerate into mutual validation pacts. The creativity crisis. Comfort is kryptonite to genius. The adversity advantage. A study of Nobel laureates found 85% experienced significant trauma. Beethoven composed his greatest works while deaf, The Curse of Infinite Tools. Digital artists report blank canvas syndrome with unlimited brushes. Constraints breed innovation. See Shakespeare's iambic pentameter. The death of dangerous ideas. Safe spaces protect feelings but murder intellectual growth. Every philosophical revolution began as heresy. Cultural consequences. History's warning signs are everywhere. The Rome parallel pre-collapse. Rome saw bread and circuses replacing civic duty, gladiator games as sanitized pseudo-struggle compared to endless streaming replacing cultural production, contact sports as our bloodless gladiatorial substitute, the masculinity-femininity crisis. Young men initiate 60% fewer fights than 1990, CDC data. Cosmetic surgery replaces rites of passage for women. Jordan Peterson, untested men become dangerous boys. Spiritual sterility. Comfortable religions focus on self-help rather than transcendence. Psychedelic research shows trauma integration often precedes mystical experiences. The neurological toll fMRI scans reveal the challenge gap. Subjects solving hard problems show prefrontal cortex expansion. Those choosing easy tasks exhibit neural atrophy, dopamine dysregulation, intermittent rewards, social media, destroy patience for deep work. ADHD rates correlate with decreased tolerance for boredom. The stress deprivation effect. Controlled stress boosts BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor. Anxiety disorders increase in overprotected children, the fork in the road. This isn't about romanticizing suffering, it's about recognizing that the avoidance of discomfort has become more debilitating than discomfort itself. We've created a world where students demand trigger warnings for classic literature, employees sue over hostile work environments, i.e. having a demanding boss. Adults need safe spaces from political disagreement. Nietzsche's warning echoes louder than ever. Man is the cruelest animal. At tragedies, bullfights and crucifixions, he has so far felt best on earth. And when he invented hell for himself, behold, that was his heaven on earth. We haven't eliminated suffering, we've just made it chronic rather than acute. But there is a way out, a radical reclamation of struggle. The modern world has sold you a counterfeit paradise, a gilded cage where the doors are unlocked, but no one dares leave. Nietzsche's solution: become the earthquake that shatters your own prison. This is not about mere self-improvement. This is philosophical warfare against the cult of comfort. Nietzsche's threefold prescription. 1. Live dangerously, the antidote to complacency. The original German carries more weight. Lebensgefahr. Life danger, not recklessness but strategic tension. Take the cold shower before checking your phone. Have the uncomfortable conversation today, not tomorrow. Travel alone to places where you don't speak the language. Case study: Norwegian Friluftsliv, open-air life, mandates exposing children to calculated risks. Result: 50% lower childhood anxiety rates than overprotected cultures. 2. Amor fati, love of fate. Nietzsche's ultimate hack for alchemizing suffering. My formula for greatness is amor fati, that one wants nothing to be different. Practice. When stuck in traffic, this is exactly where I need to be. When betrayed, what strength is this revealing in me? When sick, what deeper listening does this force? Psychological payoff. University of Tokyo studies show fate acceptance practitioners report 37% higher life satisfaction. 3. The Übermensch protocol. Not the Ayn Rand caricature, but the self-surpasser. Daily ask: what comfort did I deny myself today? Weekly challenge: do something that would make your softer self gasp. Monthly ordeal: a 24-hour fast, silent retreat, or solo wilderness night. Biological basis: Intermittent stress triggers FOXO3 longevity genes. University of Hawaii research. The Modern Ascetics Toolkit. 1. Digital fasting. Try monk mornings, no screens until noon, Luddite Sundays. Analog only, why it works. Restores attention span. MIT study shows 3-day digital detox resets focus. 2. Voluntary discomfort. Evidence-backed practices. Cold exposure. Wim Hof method reduces inflammation markers by 28%. Sleep floor camping. Japanese samurai tradition boosts circadian resilience. Barefoot walking. Harvard studies show improved posture and grounding. 3. Conflict cultivation. Healthy tension building. Debate clubs with ideological opponents. Brutal feedback Fridays with trusted peers. Reading material that intellectually disgusts you. Historical precedent. Ancient Greek symposiums required drinking wine while debating philosophy. Conscious uncoupling of pleasure and agreement. Case studies in radical rejection of comfort. The Stoic. CEO Ryan Holiday's Stillness is the Key applied. 5 a.m. workouts in freezing garage. Handwriting first drafts of books. Result. 3. NYT bestsellers before age 35. The warrior monk's Shaolin temple initiates sleep on wooden boards for years, train through broken bones. Outcome, superhuman pain, tolerance and focus. The Arctic philosopher Norwegian explorer Erling Kagge, 50-day solo South Pole trek with no radio. Regular silence retreats in isolation tanks. Discovery, boredom is the gateway to original thought. The fork in the road. This is where you choose. Will you continue being a passive consumer of pre-packaged experiences, your edges slowly rounded by the endless polishing of convenience? Or will you become the voluntary barbarian, the one who storms the gates of their own gilded cage? Nietzsche's words ring across the centuries. The secret for harvesting from existence the greatest fruitfulness and greatest enjoyment is to live dangerously. But the ultimate revelation, the one that recontextualizes everything, comes next. Here lies the forbidden epiphany, the one that shatters the illusion of comfort as virtue. What you call happiness is often just anesthesia. What you fear as suffering is the only path to awakening. Nietzsche didn't just predict this, he lived it. In his final decade, plagued by migraines and near blindness, he wrote his most brilliant works in bursts between agony. His prescription wasn't masochism but alchemy. You must have chaos within you to give birth to a dancing star. The comfort heroine paradox. Modern neuroscience reveals an uncomfortable truth. Pleasure and pain share neural pathways. University of California studies. Endless comfort dysregulates opioid receptors, making mild discomfort feel unbearable. The brain literally shrinks when deprived of challenges. Harvard MRI studies on overprotected youth. This isn't philosophy, it's physiology. We've engineered a world where elevators spare us stair climbing. Atrophy, GPS eliminates spatial reasoning. Hippocampus shrinkage, dating apps prevent courtship failures, emotional stunting, civilizational suicide. Historian Arnold Toynbee's law holds true. Civilizations die by suicide, not murder. The pattern is unmistakable. Athens collapsed when symposiums turned from philosophical debates to drinking contests. Rome fell when bread and circuses replaced civic duty. The Ottoman Empire ossified when the Sultanate banned printing presses to preserve tradition. Now observe modernity, education systems that prioritize safety over intellectual rigor, economic models that reward short-term comfort over long-term resilience, political discourse where harm reduction stifles necessary conflict. We aren't facing collapse, we're orchestrating it. The ecstatic alternative. Nietzsche's Zarathustra proclaims, I say unto you, one must still have chaos in oneself to give birth to a dancing star. This is no metaphor. Ecstatic traditions across cultures harness discomfort for transcendence. Sufi, whirling dervishes induce dizziness to break egoic perception. Native American vision quests use fasting and isolation to prompt revelation. Buddhist Tantra transforms desire into spiritual fuel rather than suppressing it. Modern equivalents exist. Flow states require challenge skill balance. Csikszentmihalyi's research, psychedelic therapy uses temporary ego dissolution to heal trauma. Extreme athletes report mystical experiences during endurance crises. The eternal recurrence, litmus test. Nietzsche's ultimate thought experiment. What if someday or night a demon were to steal into your loneliest loneliness and say to you, "This life as you now live it, you will have to live once more and innumerable times more"? Would you not throw yourself down and gnash your teeth and curse the demon who spoke thus? Or have you once experienced a tremendous moment when you would have answered him, "You are a god, and never have I heard anything more divine"? Ask yourself now, could you bear to relive your comfortable life eternally? If the answer isn't an ecstatic yes, you already know what must change. The final invitation, at the edge of all understanding, stands this truth. The opposite of happiness isn't sadness, it's numbness. The opposite of life isn't death, it's safety. The opposite of growth isn't failure, it's comfort. You stand now at the precipice between two destinies, the last man's fate, a life of blinking contentment, relationships without depth, death having never truly lived, the overhuman's ascent, a life burned bright with tension. Love that terrifies with its intensity, death having roared your yes to existence. Nietzsche's words echo through time. Become who you are, not through ease, not through safety, but through the sacred friction that forges souls. The demon of eternal recurrence whispers its question one final time. How will you answer? Imagine this. You are standing at the edge of a vast, silent lake at dusk. The water is perfectly still, reflecting the fading light of the sky like a mirror. There is no wind, no sound, just an eerie, almost oppressive stillness. You pick up a stone and throw it into the water. The moment it breaks the surface, ripples expand outward in perfect concentric circles, distorting the reflection of the world above. Now imagine that your mind is that lake. Every thought, every desire, every fear is like a stone hurled into its depths, each one sending out waves that distort your perception of reality. The more you throw, the more chaotic the surface becomes, until the reflection is nothing but a blur of fractured light. Here lies the great paradox. We spend our lives chasing after things we believe will bring us peace, success, love, validation, pleasure, yet the very act of chasing ensures we never truly find it. The more we grasp, the more elusive peace becomes. The more we strive, the more we suffer. Why? Because we have misunderstood the nature of peace entirely. We assume peace is something to be acquired, like a possession or an achievement. We treat it as the endpoint of a long journey. Once I have this, once I achieve that, then I will finally be at peace. But what if peace is not a destination? What if it is not something you find, but something you uncover, something already present, buried beneath the noise of your own restless striving? Arthur Schopenhauer, the 19th century philosopher of pessimism and will, saw this with terrifying clarity. He recognized that human suffering is not merely the result of external circumstances, but is woven into the fabric of desire itself. We are not tortured by the world. We are tortured by our endless wanting. Every fulfilled desire gives birth to a new one, an endless cycle of lack and fleeting satisfaction. So here is the great question that claws at the soul. If peace cannot be found in the fulfillment of desires, if it is not hidden in some future moment where all conditions are finally met, then where does it reside? And how do we reach it without destroying ourselves in the pursuit? You have felt this tension before. That gnawing sense that no matter how much you achieve, how much you accumulate, how much you are loved or admired, there is still something missing. A quiet voice whispering that none of it is enough. That you are running in circles, exhausting yourself for an illusion. What if the answer is not to run faster, but to stop running altogether? What if the secret is not in adding, but in subtracting, not in grasping, but in letting go? Schopenhauer believed that the only true escape from suffering was to deny the will, to step outside the endless cycle of desire and aversion, to cease the constant mental agitation that keeps us prisoners of our own minds. But how? How does one silence the screaming demands of the ego? How do you still the ripples in the lake when the world and your own mind keeps throwing stones into it? The answer is not what you expect. It is not a grand revelation, but a quiet, almost invisible shift, a way of seeing that changes everything. But before we uncover it, we must first understand the true depth of the problem. Because what you think is keeping you from peace is only a symptom. The real enemy is far more insidious, hiding in plain sight. The illusion of control. You wake up in the morning and before your eyes fully open, your mind is already racing. What do I need to do today? What if I fail? What do others think of me? The thoughts come unbidden, like waves crashing onto shore, one after another, relentless, inescapable. You tell yourself that if you just plan enough, work hard enough, and outsmart uncertainty, you will finally feel secure. But here is the hidden trap. The more you try to control your life, the more life controls you. This is not some abstract philosophical musing. It is a psychological reality, a neural habit burned into your brain by evolution. You are wired to seek, to strive, to never be satisfied, because contentment, in the Darwinian sense, is dangerous. The caveman who relaxed too soon was eaten. The one who kept worrying, kept desiring, kept pushing, survived. Schopenhauer called this the will to life, the blind, ceaseless force driving all human behavior. It is the engine behind every ambition, every fear, every desperate grasp for meaning. It does not care about your happiness. It only cares about perpetuating itself. And so, like a hamster on a wheel, you run, chasing satisfaction that always stays just out of reach. The prison of thought modern psychology echoes this in different terms. The default mode network, DMN, a web of brain regions that activates when you're not focused on the external world, is responsible for self-referential thinking, your inner monologue, your ruminations, your ceaseless mental chatter. Studies show that an overactive DMN correlates with anxiety, depression, and chronic dissatisfaction. In other words, your natural state of mind is your own worst enemy. The Buddha saw this 2,500 years ago when he declared that life is suffering. The existentialists, Sartre, Camus, grappled with it in the 20th century, realizing that humans are condemned to freedom, to the unbearable weight of choice and self-awareness. Even Freud, though his framework was different, recognized the same truth. We are at war with ourselves. But why? Why does the mind sabotage its own peace? Because peace is not its function. Its function is survival. And survival requires constant scanning for threats, for opportunities, for ways to improve your standing. It is never done. The cultural lie. Society compounds the problem. From childhood, you are fed a narrative. If you work hard, if you achieve, if you acquire, you will be happy. But this is a bait and switch. The system thrives on your dissatisfaction. Consumerism, social media, even well-meaning motivational gurus all profit from keeping you in a state of wanting. Nietzsche saw through this when he wrote, "Man does not strive for happiness, only the Englishman does that." What he meant was that happiness, as commonly imagined, a stable, permanent state of fulfillment, is a fantasy. Real life is flux, struggle, and contradiction. The modern world sells you the lie that you can and should eliminate all discomfort, that you deserve constant pleasure. But this only makes the inevitable suffering harder to bear. The core dilemma. So here we arrive at the heart of the problem. You are trapped in a mind that cannot stop wanting, in a world that thrives on making you want more, in a body wired for dissatisfaction. Every attempt to find peace through external means only tightens the chains. Every achievement that promises fulfillment eventually fades, leaving you hungry for the next one. Every relationship, possession, or success that you believe will finally make you whole becomes just another stone thrown into the lake, disturbing the stillness you crave. This is the true nature of the human condition, not as some tragic fate, but as a misguided search in the wrong direction. Schopenhauer's insight was brutal but liberating. Peace is not the absence of problems, it is the absence of resistance to what is. It is not found in the fulfillment of desires, but in the dissolution of the one who desires. But how? How do you step outside this self-perpetuating cycle? The answer lies in an ancient but radical shift, one that goes against everything you've been taught. The ghost in the machine. You check your phone without thinking, scroll, refresh, scroll again. A notification lights up the screen. Your pulse quickens, just for a fraction of a second. Who is it? What do they want? But it's nothing, just another algorithm nudging you, another ripple in the lake of your mind. This is how the trap operates, not in grand, dramatic failures, but in the quiet erosion of attention, the slow leaching of presence. You don't notice it happening because it feels normal. It feels like living. But beneath the surface, something far more sinister is taking shape, the fragmentation of self. Neuroscience reveals a disturbing truth. The brain cannot distinguish between external threats and self-generated ones. When you ruminate on a past mistake or anxiously project into the future, your body reacts as if you're facing a predator. Cortisol floods your system, muscles tense, heart rate spikes. You are being hunted by your own thoughts. Worse yet, the modern world has weaponized this vulnerability. Social media platforms exploit your dopamine circuits, keeping you in a state of perpetual hunger. News cycles thrive on your outrage and fear. Even productivity culture sells you the lie that you must always be optimizing, turning rest into guilt and stillness into failure. The result? A fractured sense of self. You are never quite here. Your mind is always half somewhere else, replaying conversations, rehearsing scenarios, worrying about things that may never happen, never quite satisfied. Each achievement is quickly discarded as you fixate on the next goal, the next milestone, the next validation. Never quite free, even in moments of quiet, there's a low hum of unease, as if you've forgotten something vital. This is the paradox of the digital age. We have never been more connected, yet never more alone inside our own heads. The illusion of busyness society rewards motion, not depth. The more you do, the more you're praised, even if what you're doing is meaningless. You wear exhaustion like a badge of honor, mistaking movement for progress. But Schopenhauer warned of this centuries ago. Most men spend their lives in a state of constant motion, like squirrels in a wheel, rushing around in frantic activity without ever arriving anywhere. The unseen consequence: a life spent climbing ladders that were leaned against the wrong walls. You chase promotions, likes, and milestones, only to arrive and realize, this wasn't what I wanted. But by then, the habit is ingrained. The wheel keeps turning, the fear of silence. Try this. Sit alone in a room with no distractions. No phone, no music, no screens. Just you and the empty space. How long before discomfort sets in? 5 minutes? 2? For most, the answer is immediately. The mind rebels against silence because silence is a mirror. It reflects back the chaos we've been avoiding. We fill our lives with noise, podcasts about playlists, not because we love sound, but because we fear what we'll hear in its absence. This is the ultimate consequence of an unquiet mind. You lose the ability to be with yourself. And if you can't be with yourself, how can you ever be at peace? The way out. The first step is seeing the trap for what it is. Not a personal failing, but a systemic one. Not a you problem, but a human problem. The second step is realizing you cannot think your way out of thinking. No amount of analysis will silence the mind. No mantra, no productivity hack, no life coach can give you what you already have. If only you'd stop drowning it out. The third step, that's where the rebellion begins. The radical act of doing nothing. You expect a solution to sound like effort, a 10-step plan, a discipline, another stone to throw into the lake. But what if freedom begins with not throwing the stone? Schopenhauer's philosophy points to a truth so counterintuitive it feels like betrayal. The way out is not through action, but through cessation. Not through more thinking, but through the dissolution of the thinker. This is not passivity, this is rebellion. 1. The art of willful surrender. The will to life, that insatiable force driving all desire and aversion, cannot be outrun, but it can be observed. Here lies the first seismic shift. You are not your thoughts, you are the awareness behind them. Every time you lose yourself in rumination, you are mistaking the ripples for the lake. But the lake itself, the silent, unmoving depth beneath the chaos, is always undisturbed. How to practice this? Pause the chase. Next time anxiety arises, don't distract yourself. Don't fix it, sit with it, let it thrash. Watch how it loses power when you stop feeding it resistance. Question every need. That urgency to check your phone, to plan, to control. Ask, who does this serve? The real me or the fear-driven mind? 2. The power of negative visualization. The Stoics practiced premeditatio malorum, imagining the worst-case scenario to detach from fear. Schopenhauer took this further. By fully accepting suffering as inevitable, you disarm it. Try this mental experiment. What if I never achieve what I want? What if I'm forgotten? What if I lose everything? At first it feels like terror. Then something unexpected happens. You realize you'd survive. The ego screams, the soul shrugs. This is the birth of true freedom, the understanding that all your fears are paper tigers. 3. The aesthetic escape. Schopenhauer believed art and music were rare portals out of suffering. Why? Because beauty forces pure perception, a state where the self dissolves into the object. When you're utterly absorbed in a symphony or a sunset, the voice in your head shuts off. There is no you separate from the experience. Rebellion tactic. Spend 20 minutes listening to music with no distractions, not as background noise, but as if your life depended on hearing every note. Study a masterpiece, a painting, a poem, until you feel its essence. Not analyze, absorb. 4. The sacred pause. Every addiction to thought follows the same cycle. Trigger, reaction, suffering. Break the chain with a single breath. When provoked, wait. Let the impulse to react rise and fall like a wave. Speak only when silence feels heavier than words. This creates space between stimulus and response, the birthplace of true will. 5. The ultimate subversion. Compassion as defiance. Here's the paradox. The more you fight your own suffering, the more you suffer. But when you turn toward others' pain, your own shrinks. Schopenhauer. Compassion is the basis of morality. Why? Because in helping another, you escape the prison of self. Try this today. Perform one act of kindness without acknowledgement, not for praise, not even for inner virtue, just to dissolve the illusion of separateness. The quiet revolution. This is not about becoming emotionless. It's about no longer being enslaved by emotions. The rebel's path, see the chains, your identification with thought. Stop feeding them through non-resistance. Redirect energy into perception, creation, compassion. The world will call this passivity. It's the most violent overthrow imaginable, a quiet coup against the dictatorship of the mind. The last illusion to shatter. You followed the trail this far, through the maze of desire, the prison of thought, the rebellion of stillness. Now comes the revelation that rewires everything. There is no you to find peace. The seeker is the obstacle. The I that craves tranquility is the very noise drowning it out. Schopenhauer glimpsed this when he wrote, "The world is my representation." But what does that mean? The mirror of consciousness. Imagine holding a snow globe. Inside there's a miniature city swirling in fake flakes when shaken. You are not the tiny figure in that globe. You are the hand holding it. Your thoughts, emotions, identities, they are the snow. You are the space in which they appear. This isn't metaphysics. It's direct experience. Thoughts arise, but who observes them? Emotions surge, but who remains when they pass? I claims ownership, but where is this I located? The harder you look for the thinker, the more it vanishes like a mirage. The grand irony. All suffering stems from one mistake, believing you're the character in the story, not the blank page on which it's written. You fear death, but only the I can die. Awareness was never born. You chase joy, unaware that you're the stillness behind both joy and sorrow. You beg the universe for answers, not realizing you're the universe experiencing itself. This is what the mystics meant by before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. The difference? No one left to suffer the chopping. Schopenhauer's final gift. His concept of will wasn't just pessimism, it was a secret roadmap. See the will in everything, the desperate striving in ants, empires, lovers and stars. Recognize it in yourself, the invisible hand moving your ambitions and fears. Then, stop feeding it, not through force but through seeing through the game. When you watch desire arise without obeying it, the spell breaks. The practice of no practice. This isn't another technique. It's the end of techniques. When eating, taste without the inner food critic. When walking, feel gravity without labeling me walking. When suffering, notice there is pain, not I am in pain. The shift is subtler than a single breath, vaster than the Big Bang. The last question. Ask yourself now, if all my thoughts disappeared, would I disappear, or would what remains be more truly myself? Don't answer intellectually. Look, the eternal punchline. Peace was never lost. You were just too busy narrating its absence to notice. Like a man searching for his glasses while wearing them, like a dancer who forgot she's the stage. You are what you seek. Not as some grand enlightenment, but as the ordinary miracle of this. The hum of traffic, the weight of your body in the chair, the next breath entering without permission. No teacher needed, no more books, just this, forever pretending to be that. The lake was never disturbed, only the ripples believed they were separate from the water.